Hi, and welcome to our latest edition of our Telemedia vodcast slash podcast, depending on what platform you happen to find us. I'm Paul Skeldon, the editor-in-chief at Telemedia. I'm joined by our head of strategy, Anzelle Robertson. Hi, Anzelle. Thank you for joining
Hi,
us.
Paul. Thank
I,
you.
and I've got Anzelle on because I just want an update really on where the Telemedia Johannesburg event is at, because I believe you've got some quite exciting news about a keynote speaker that will be gracing the stage at the show on the 2nd of June. So tell us more. What's happening?
You spot on, Paul. And if I didn't know any better, I thought you would have just seen the newsletter that went out from Telemedia Magazine to our entire database and World Telemedia's database, announcing indeed the CEO of Labara, Nigeria, Tenny Stuffman, is joining us to deliver one of the day one keynotes. Of course, she's a strong, well-known, well-respected female figure in the African telco space. So we're very pleased to have her. At a personal level, I'm very happy to share, the stage with the women in our industry. And I know that Tenny is going to have a lot of insight to bring. Of course, Nigeria is a large market in terms of population, not only, but also in terms of SIM card penetration, consumers being rather picky about which SIM card they're using for what. So from a digital payments and commerce point of view, it's a mega market, and I'm sure all our delegates will have a lot to learn from Tenny and from Labara Nigeria's story.
Yeah, there's some interesting things. I mean, she's talking about all sorts of things, aren't she? Like sovereign digital assets and all the way to localized AI and agentic commerce and RCS, the regulatory framework. She is sort of covering the whole thing, I think, which is an
And I
excellent
think
insight.
it is, and I think it also speaks to her role. If you're the CEO of an MVNO in one of the largest, if not the largest, then by number market on the continent in terms of people, then you're probably going to think a bit more outside the box and look a bit further than just direct carrier billing specifically.
Oh, for
Um,
sure, for
and
sure.
and I think I think that bodes well for all delegates and for you and me in terms of
Mm.
what we stand to learn and how we can take those learnings and apply them either to the DCB space, to the messaging space, to the RCS space.
Mm. I think it's interesting because I think it really exemplifies how this industry is not just about billing and content and those sorts of things. It is now about all these other aspects, which we have been talking about for many years. But now I think this really cements how intertwined this all is. Which brings me to sort of some of the other highlights of the conference agenda we have so far. If you go to wtevent.com and search out Johannesburg, you can see all that's sort of lined up there. But we're covering off well, among other things, a raft of topics. One of the interesting ones, sort of that's pretty much kicks the event off, is the sort of sports content in Africa that CFM are doing. Our friends at Content for Mobile. Tell us a little bit about what we can expect there.
Yeah, so I mean, it goes without saying that Africa is pretty much or very much a mobile first market, and that's no different for consumers wanting to watch live sports. CFM are one of the companies, if not the leading company, in enabling that on the continent, and they'll be delivering the one of the other day one keynotes around the topic sports content monetization in the region.
It's very popular, isn't it? How does that sort of fit in with something that's happening on day two? There's a sort of market focus around South Africa with Jackie Jones from World Play. That's going to tackle some of those things and more, I guess, as well, isn't it?
Exactly. So as much as our event is taking place in Johannesburg, we're hosting it in Johannesburg, Joburg being, of course, the sort of hub of South Africa from a economic point of view, but also easy to reach throughout the continent and from Europe for the most part. As much as the event takes place here, It is a sub-Saharan African focused event. Of course, with the postponement of the Dubai event, we're seeing a lot of interest also from the community in the Middle East and beyond, traveling down to Johannesburg. But of course, we cannot have an event in Johannesburg without talking about the South African market specifically. And that's what this session is going to be focused on. Now, I don't want to give too much away just yet because I don't want to take the pleasure of doing so away from Jackie Jones over at WorldPlay, of course, a well-established local aggregator, but herself alongside a couple of other sort of key established figures from the industry locally are hosting a South Africa themed lounge where I believe our delegates will be treated to some South African delicacies, of course, well known for our wines. I'm afraid she wasn't able to secure some of our rugby players, the other things we're well known for. But this session is really the conference mirror of that physical South Africa themed lounge. And in this session, we're going to be digging into what direct carrier billing and digital content monetization means in South Africa specifically.
Interesting. I mean, it's all interesting. I'm particularly looking forward to that one. I think it's going to be really insightful about a really exciting and interesting market. We can't really address any of the telemedia things without talking about sort of fraud and that side of things. Our friends at Avina are taking part on that front. What sort of things can we expect there?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of years ago, maybe 5-10 years ago, when we spoke about fraud in the mobile payments context, it was very, almost covered in this blanket of uncertainty or unsurety or almost a negative connotation to direct carrier billing because of the potentials around fraud. But the reality is today, when we talk about the fraud in the context of direct carrier billing, we can actually have positive, proactive, forward-looking conversations because companies like Avina and the others that offer similar services and security solutions have made it possible to run sustainable businesses in markets like South Africa that have been strong in adopting anti-fraud measures. The South African Code of Conduct was one of the first, so WASPA, the regulator, who of course we're co-hosting the event with, the Code of Conduct was one of the first to actually make it a requirement for digital content service providers to implement anti-fraud measures. So yes, Avina, of course, also one of the platinum sponsors of the event alongside Content for Mobile. They're going to share some of their experience alongside a couple of their closer partners from the region of what sort of the status quo is in terms of fraud management in the market regionally.
I guess it also gives us an opportunity to look at HTTPS also, as I imagine that will come up in that session and probably across others.
And probably at the water cooler and probably at the lunch table and probably on the golf course. So yes, that's going to be everywhere. And again, I don't want to sit here and have you and me publish expectations that we can't guarantee yet. But there is talk as we speak about if not an actual workshop, then definitely a panel conversation that will be added to the conference schedule, focusing specifically on the impact of Google's HTTPS by default browsing on header enrichment. Of course, Africa, many markets in Africa in general, I think emerging markets, lower ARPU markets, heavily dependent on volumes to run profitable business models. And when they're dependent on volumes, then you can't have conversion rates tank, and that's what we're seeing with header enrichment being impacted the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be an interesting, as you say, wide-ranging discussion topic everywhere, I would have thought, at the event. We're also doing some stuff on messaging, aren't we? Which often some people see it as a bit of a fringe thing in telemedia. I think it's actually quite key, particularly RCS, because it's a sort of transactionable messaging platform. It's a great way to market telemedia services. Tell us a bit what we can expect maybe from the messaging panel that's taking place at this show.
Yeah, so just take a step back. Why are we having a messaging panel over and above your and my shared belief that RCS, for example, or conversational commerce and DCB were made for each other? But the other reason we're having it is because WASPA is, of course, also the self-regulator for the messaging ecosystem in South Africa. So we are welcoming WASPA members on a complementary basis to the show, and that also includes members from the or companies from the CPaaS messaging, business messaging, RCS, bulk SMS space. So yes, we're hosting a panel conversation around how that part of the telemedia sort of environment looks throughout the region. And we'll be welcoming a nice mix of MNO representatives, enterprise, gateways, CPaaS providers to lead that conversation for us.
Yeah, I'm particularly excited about that one. As you say, I've long believed the two things work together very well. So that's sort of some of the highlights of the sort of 2 days of the conference. Obviously, it's not all about work. There is also fun. And we do have this sort of what might be to some people coming from, I think, outside the region, a slightly unusual concept around how we're rounding off the event with Sports Day. So for those that aren't familiar, what can we expect from that? Do I need to pack my shorts?
So, the saying goes, when in Rome. So when in South Africa, I think one way of networking that's sort of embedded in our culture, from sort of small medium enterprise right until the big corporates, is the traditional golf day. Of course, not everyone play golf, so WASPA calls it the sports day. We also have lawn bowls as an option, so bowling a big black ball on a lawn. People can Google it if they don't know what it is, lawn bowls. So perhaps the more lower barrier to entry option for those that don't play golf. I think
the one for me, yes. I think I'll be going for the lower barrier entry.
Any case, and what it really is delegates, anyone that's registered for the Telemedia Johannesburg event as a whole. So if you're registered for day 1 and 2 of the conference, it means you automatically have a spectator pass to come and attend the sports day on day 3. That's the Thursday. And what it really is just a lovely informal way of networking in the winter sun, as we would call it in Johannesburg. You will be either joining a team of 4 people playing golf, so golf 4-ball, or you can enter a team of 4 people or be placed with a team if you don't have 4 other people, 3 other people, to play some lawn balls. The evening will conclude with a prize giving. There'll be a build your own hamburger sort of informal dinner together, and it's just a great way of networking.
Sounds excellent.
So on your question, do you need to pack shorts? I'd go as far as to say, you get these cargo pants that you can zip around the knees. I would say those would be your best bet, because early June in Johannesburg, one thing we know is that it will be dry. It is not our rainy season. It doesn't rain. It will be sunny. Whether it'll be 10 degrees or 20 degrees, I can't tell you, and that's why your zippy shorts and your zippy pants.
I shall bring adaptable trousers. It sounds excellent. It sounds like I'm particularly looking forward to Sports Day. That and the messaging panel. Among all the other things, there's some excellent stuff there. The conference agenda is still taking shape. There's still going to be more announcements to come, so we'll keep everybody posted about that. In the meantime, as I say, check out wtevent.com where you can see where we're at with it, and reserve your place, and we look forward to seeing you in Johannesburg.
Or because we've done some good work with the website, simply Google World Telemedia and we are the top hit if you don't remember the URL.
That's true. I'm stuck in the world of doing WT event from the old days. Yes, Google World Telemedia Johannesburg and it'll be top of the results. Excellent stuff. Well, Anzelle, thank you very much for joining us and sharing that. I look forward to the event itself. I think it's going to be an absolute cracker. I'll let you get back to rounding up some even more exciting and devilishly good speakers, and we'll see everybody who's listening hopefully out there in Johannesburg 2nd to the 4th of June.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.